So if you spend any time on the internet, you would swear that Windows 11 would have to be the most hated operating system, Windows operating system at least, since Vista or Windows 95 maybe? I don't know. I must admit, Windows 95 I had a pretty good time with. Admittedly, it completely crashed when I first installed it, and then it ran fine for years just with half the things missing, but it was a great games launcher and I was fine. But as for Windows 11, I don't know, people are worried about it, so I thought, well, I'll try it so you don't have to. So yeah, Windows 11 does have people going quite a bit for various reasons, and some people even talking about moving to Linux because of Windows 11, and that's fine. Look, any excuse to move to Linux is a good excuse, let's face it, and gaming is getting better there. But sure, upgrading to Windows 11 can be a pain. If you've got the newer hardware, something in the last few years, 2017 on, no problem, upgrade your TPM in your BIOS, and it's straightforward. You can upgrade or install and no problems at all. If you've got older hardware before that, Ryzen 1 or Generation 7 Intel, whatever, like my old Haswell box back there, which is a 4000 something, you're going to have problems. There might be ways around it, but you're going to have problems. But you know, if it's older hardware, you stay with Windows 10, and there's no big deal about that really, because they're going to be upgrading Windows 10 for quite a while, and so your older machines are going to be fine. And if they get to a point where they're not supported, then you can go to Linux. Easy, like I have done with many of my own machines. So then you decide, do you upgrade or not? Is it worth it? Is it different enough? Is it too different? Are you going to be lost or hated, or is it going to break everything? And I suppose that's the big question. And I'm sure that's going to be different depending on what you run and who you are. So I'm going to look at it from a point of view of a person who just uses their Windows machine to run games and do a bit of browsing, and not a huge amount else, because I do have my Linux box for a lot of other stuff, and I have a feeling that all the programs I use on Linux that I can run on Windows will probably not be affected either. So I'm going to look at it from that sort of perspective, and I use my trusty old machine here for my test bed, because this is a worst case scenario PC really. This PC was first installed with Windows about 2017 with a new install of Windows 10. It was a Ryzen 1 at the time, probably a 1600, something like that. It has had, the original install has been swapped for onto another hard drive. It was originally on a external SATA, now it's on an NVMe. The CPU, it's had several CPU changes. It's had a motherboard change. Pretty much everything in the computer has been changed. I think there's one old 2 terabyte SATA Seagate that's still in there, and that's about it. Everything has been changed, the case is the same. And then on top of all of that, I have just upgraded Windows 10 to Windows 11. It's the same install, it's just an upgrade. It is all the worst possible scenario, all the things you're not supposed to do. I've even changed an NVIDIA video card to an AMD video card. I've used that as a test bed, because I want to see, do all the wrong things and just see how bad it can be, see if I can break it. I know I have broken plenty of machines in the past. This one is still not broken and still even runs at a reasonable rate. I'm going to do a upgrade to a fresh Windows 11 install later to compare, but at the moment it seems to be doing fine. I can test the frame rates against other machines, and it seems fine. It has got a few little tweaks going now, where you get a few little pop-ups when I'm loading up where something's glitching. But it is interesting that this is still going fine after doing all the worst things I could possibly do since 2017, which is what, 5 years nearly now. So it has been fun. So this is the worst case scenario of doing Windows 11. So I thought that's a good place to test, and did get this lovely new background. which I don't use. I actually change the background, but I put it on this background so we can say straight away, oh look, it's Windows 11. You can tell because it's got the blue thing. But what's the difference, and is it worth it? And that's a real question, and this is where this becomes another one of those pointless videos that everyone talks about, because for me it's not that different. I put this on my wife's machine and she couldn't tell the difference. Mind you, I could put KDE on my wife's machine and she probably wouldn't notice, except some of the icons wouldn't be in the right place possibly, but I put this on my wife's machine and she's fine, and it really didn't change anything. There are a few differences I'll have a look at later. The fact that it's not that different is sort of a double-edged sword, because then you think, well, if it's very similar, I might as well change over. I won't really notice. I'll get the new one and it'll all be great. It might break a couple of things, but that's fine if you're not worried about it. On the other hand, you might say, well, if it's not that much different, why bother? I'll just stay with the one that works. And it really depends on how much you want round corners on your windows, I suppose. Because let's face it, round corners are probably one of the big things. Some other minor differences. There's a lot of cosmetic differences. Well, not a lot. There are some cosmetic differences, but yeah, the round corners. And of course it has the taskbar in the center, which one of the first things I did, of course, is move that to the edge, which is quite easy to do in your settings. So you can just go to the settings and before you know it, it's back on the left. And I like that because then it looks like my KDE desktop, which is great. I actually did that more so I could have the same as my KDE desktop, more so than Windows 10, because there's very few Windows 10's computers left in the house now. I think there's one, old Haswell one. And actually I find Windows 11 possibly a little bit more like KDE with the positioning of certain buttons and icons. So that's actually good for me in that respect. So there are those cosmetic differences. Yeah, the Windows button, the start button icon in the corner is a little bit different, and the start menu itself is a little bit different. It has icons instead of the tiles it used to have, and you've actually got to click the key back and forth there to get to the all applications, but you can put your favorites in there. It probably is more limiting than the old Windows 10 in some ways, but it's fine. I don't get a lot of my software there anyway. I put my most used programs just in my taskbar, and half the rest of it comes out of the Steam menus anyway, so that's not a real big deal to me, because they are grouping up. Even games are more grouping into launchers now, so you know, a couple of launchers is all you need really, and a few main icons for the main things you use. So that doesn't really worry me there. And of course the little icons there for start and your folders and setup and that are in a different place to Windows 10, which probably one of the most annoying things I've had in the whole system really is that when I click on start, it's a little bit more out of the way. You can add what you want there, and that's just a matter of going through the setup, which is quite easy to get to the icons you're going to use there most often. And you very quickly get used to the fact that you have to go and move your mouse a couple of centimeters across the screen instead of just going straight up when you want to put it to sleep or shut down or whatnot. But yeah, it's funny that little thing is probably the one that annoyed me the most out of everything in the changeover. But as I say, it's now more like KDE. Of course, the right-click menus when you right-click on the screen are slightly different. I mean, aside from the round corners, they have slightly different wording, and I know some people were annoyed by this, and they said it's all right. You just got to go down to the little show more options menu. But to me, that just shows more of the same menu items in different wording. I think there's one extra item there that I don't need. So I don't actually know why you would actually go to the next menu, but they have put that in there, I suppose, just to keep everyone happy, because it's then putting the old menu system is still there. It's just hidden. I would not be surprised if that does not disappear eventually, because it just seems redundant, but you never know, because let's face it, the old format disk dialog is still there. I think, what's his name, is it Dave? We'll talk about that. It's still got the old dialogue there that has been there forever, and it hasn't changed. Even in Windows 11, it's still there. They have put round corners on it though, so good show. Of course, things like the settings menus are a little bit different. I don't know if it's better or worse. It's different. That's all I can say. They've arranged it into more of a menu rather than icons. It's much of a muchness to me. It's probably more ordered than it was before, in that it looks more orderly, but it does mean that some of the older menus, like the format command, when you go into different things, there's a lack of consistency in some of them, and that may annoy some people more than me, but I don't see that as a problem. It's the same old story with Windows. I don't hate that any more than I've hated anything else in Windows for a long time, because that's pretty much the norm. There's always some old thing that's whether it used to be like the calculator and various other things that were just hangovers from days gone past, because if it's not broken, just don't bother with it. Same with the file manager. You know, it's the file manager icons are a little bit different. I have heard that some people don't like that either. It's got some different colours. It doesn't worry me. I think it looks quite colourful, really. So that seems fine. They have changed again with the menus. It's like there's less menus in some ways, and you've got to go through other menus to get to them. But I don't use a lot of those anyway, so I haven't really noticed. It's almost like they've gone and tried to gnomify it or gnomify it and just take options away or something. I don't know. Considering that I just want to copy files and whatnot, I'm not finding it to be a big deal, but there are differences, and differences can slow people down for a while till they get used to them. I understand that, but I don't see there's anything that's going to break anything there. So, and as I say, the old formatting menu is still there. That hasn't changed, so that's a bit of nostalgia. It makes you feel more at home that you can go there and at least you feel like you're still on the same old Windows, and that'll make you feel a bit better. I did find the sound. This is different, which confused the hell out of me. I think you had to go into you have to go in different menus there, and I get lost there every time when I go. When I was trying to switch over between one sound output and another, I got completely lost there, and I haven't really got the hang of navigating that yet. So I can't remember. I thought we have to go to sound settings. Nope, it's not sound settings. Yes, sound settings. So you've got to do that. That is a little bit different to what I'm used to. So it's going to take a bit of getting used to, and that's the same with everything. But then I change operating systems back and forth quite a lot, so it's not something that's going to worry me that much, but it's just annoying sometimes. One of the things I think is going to get some people quite a lot is the taskbar setting. You used to be able to right click there and get all sorts of options, see the desktop and do all sorts of things, and they're just not there anymore, and I don't even know how you do some of those things anymore. It's not something that concerns me a lot. I know you have got the the task switcher there or whatever, which I suppose does some of it now, which is it's a bit more like Linux actually there, but I don't know. You've got the taskbar settings, which you go into there, which is no problem, but I don't know what their thinking was behind that, really. It's because they've changed obviously the way it's actually programmed, but that was an odd one, and I dare say that is going to annoy people. It's not worrying me particularly, but a lot of these things are like, I can see that is going to annoy some people, because let's face it, you can just about right click there and get task manager, right? I mean, I always keep my task manager in my bar anyway, because I'm always going to it, and there are other ways of doing it. I imagine Control-Alt-Delete still does it. Yeah, that is an odd one. In any case, I am sure there will be driver issues or software issues or even hardware issues that some people are going to run into. So it's probably well worth Googling if you have any specific hardware that's really concerning you, or software. It's probably worth having a good Google before you do a switch. I haven't had anything I've run into like that. I am having trouble with some of the RGB software, but that was working and now it's stopped. So that's just the normal problems you have with RGB software conflicts. So I don't think that's Windows 11 specific. But other than that, it's been very smooth for me. But you know, that doesn't mean that's going to be that way forever. So yeah, Google before you fly. So for me, yeah, Windows is just a game launcher. It's a Steam game launching device mostly. So as long as it does that, I'm fine. A few changes and some menus are not something that's going to worry me greatly, as long as they work. I don't think anything there is going to be major, and I don't think for most people as the me major, it's just going to be, oh, this menu is in a different place, or where I change that setting is in a different place. As long as all your game devices are running and say you're using VR, if your VR gear still goes, I don't see anything there that's going to be a major issue, to be honest. But it's an easy choice. I mean, Microsoft has made it as easy as possible because they're leaving Windows 10 going. So you can change or change not. I mean, you'll probably end up with a Windows 11 box if you buy a new machine, and you probably will be fine. But if you don't want to upgrade this one, you don't have to, or if you do want to, you can. I mean, sure, there are things to hate, I suppose, and there are things I don't like, but then there's a lot of things I already don't like about Windows. I mean, there are things to hate on Windows regardless of whether it's Windows 10 or 11, and that goes for any operating system, although I think Windows is one of those ones that people like to hate more than others, and yet everyone uses it more than any of the others. But maybe that's why, you know, we're sort of stuck with it, and when it's broken, it's a pain. So we love to hate Windows, and if you hate Windows enough, you'll use something else, Linux, especially if you don't need Windows to run your game. You'll just use something else that you don't have a problem with, like, oh, I'll go use a Mac. I don't have a Mac. I haven't really used a Mac ever. I wanted a Mac when I first saw the Macintosh, and I never got one because they were really expensive, and I've never had one since either. I've come close a couple of times. I did have an Apple II clone of some sort. I never got it going, but that was the closest I ever got to Apple. So I really wasn't going to do this video. I planned on doing this video a long time ago, but then it really became a point of, is there any point? Is there any difference? But then I thought, well, I might as well put it up there, as my experience was I can hardly tell the difference, and is there a big deal? And I am going to put my desktop back. I've lost my desktop, and back to my desktop where it's just nice and dark, because I have gone to a darker background, and I have my nice little Eve spaceship picture. I don't play Eve anymore much, but I do have a spaceship picture from there. My personal advice, of course, is if your computer can run Windows 11, then run Windows 11. I mean, I have to a certain extent, because I know that someone's going to want me to fix their machine, and it's going to be running Windows 11, so I'm quite happy to go across and make sure I know roughly how it works. I'm not an expert, but you know, they're going to come on and say, I can't change my something setting, and I'm not going to know where it is if I don't run it, so I'm quite happy to do that. But I mean, I tend to be a bit of a geek anyway, so, and a nerd and whatnot, so I will always run the latest, because why not? And my advice to people is do it, and unless you really don't want to, and then don't. Or better still, install Linux and just maybe keep a Windows box for playing, I don't know, a game that's not Minecraft.